Final hour this morning with item number 8 on the agenda, an exchange of view with the Commission on the future revision of the REACH regulation. I think everyone is very well aware. This was already promised by the Commission in the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability. It was also put in the Zero Pollution Action Plan. So it is a promise that has been put forward, but that has been delayed since then. And also we had a discussion in the plenary in last year when the work program was presented. And there, of course, also Vice President Šefčovič was making very clear that once the file is ready, we will not hesitate to present it to Parliament and to Council. And the exchange of view is exactly to now inquire where the file is and how it's standing, because there's quite some eagerness on this file. And you will probably hear that from the different questions from the floor. How we're going to do it is we're going to give first the floor, of course, to the Commission, who is working on the proposal and give us an update on where they stand. And then we are taking a round of coordinators or their representatives before we also take Catch the Eye. And everyone that would like to speak on Catch the Eye, please raise your hand and make yourself known to us. But first, I'll give the floor to the Commission. We have DG ENV and DG GROW, because it's a joint effort, but we also always know that the Commission speaks with one voice. First, we have Aurel Tchabanu-Dodea from DG ENV.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to the honourable members of this committee. Of course, the Commission speaks with a single voice. Today, we will speak with two voices, but singing from the same hymn sheet. And allow me to reassure you that the line which was indicated by Vice President Šefčovič, we fully work along that line. We remain committed to the Green Deal, of which the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability is a main deliverable. Strengthening and revising chemicals legislation is one of the strategy's building blocks. We will propose a targeted revision of the REACH regulation with the aim of securing competitive advantages and innovation in Europe by promoting sustainable chemicals, simplifying and streamlining the regulatory framework, reducing burden and enhancing the protection of human health and the environment. We are committed to deliver the revision as soon as it will be ready, so that the co-legislators can still discuss the file under this mandate, or at least begin the discussion. We owe this to the citizens and to the environment, and we owe this to the industry, which needs long-term legal clarity and predictability to orient investment decisions. Indeed, a timely REACH revision is needed to incentivize a thriving market in safe and sustainable by design chemicals to the benefit of our health and environment, for the economy and for the jobs. Let me briefly mention a few key issues which retain our attention, in particular in DG Environment, as we contribute jointly together with the colleagues in GROW to this legislative chantier, to this legislative enterprise. There are a number of issues which are particularly important and which belong to the responsibility of DG Environment. Information is at the heart of science-based regulation. There remain knowledge gaps in REACH. We need more information on critical hazard classes to allow a thorough hazard assessment, including for carcinogenicity, neurotoxicity, immunotoxicity, and endocrine disruption. And from this perspective, we are reflecting how to follow suit to the CLP regulation revision, which was proposed last year by the Commission and is currently being discussed by the Parliament and by the Council. Polymers and the approach to polymers and how they could possibly be handled under the REACH regulation is another topic which retains our attention, and the possible need for registration requirements. There are approximately 200,000 polymers on the EU market currently. Many are of low concern, but some may pose a risk. So we are looking at whether it is right to oblige the registration of polymers of potential concern, around 40,000 of them. Another element of attention is the combination effects of chemicals which need to be taken into account, and a possible solution would be to introduce a mixture assessment factor to reflect that we are exposed to a range, every person is exposed to a range of different substances from different sources at the same time. And also in relation to information, another point of attention is the registration dossiers. These should be better controlled, and it should be possible to withdraw registration numbers in accordance with the no data, no market principle, which already is enshrined in the REACH regulation. A second important field of attention on which we are working is related to better enforcement of REACH regulation. And we believe that we need an audit system under REACH, setting up increased and uniform conditions and frequency of checks for certain products. This is the first aspect on which we reflect on which are the optimal modalities for introducing this, so that it works in practice also without adding administrative burden. Another topic for reflection in the area of better enforcement is the following. In line with other recent proposals on environmental legislation, we contemplate the introduction of provisions granting civil society further rights and a stronger role in case of breaches of the rules that may harm health or the environment. And we give particular attention in this respect to the obligations resulting from for the EU institutions under the Aarhus Convention and under the Aarhus regulation. Another area of attention is the need to strengthen the powers of customs authorities to tackle non-compliant imports, and we contemplate here the possibility to empower OLAF to step in on serious breaches, and online sales will need a responsible economic actor in the EU. Now, I would like to hand over the floor to my colleague Christine Schreiber, Director in DG GROW, in charge of, among other things, chemicals, who will make comments about the aspects relevant to the competence of DG GROW. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and already given you the floor. So, Ms. Schreiber, you have the floor, DG GROW.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Aurel. Let me just complement what my colleague just explained, and reiterate that we in the Commission, we are fully committed to delivering this REACH revision speedily and with a high level of ambition for human health and the environment. But I think it's also important to underline that we also have a high ambition to simplify the working of the REACH regulation and tackling all the shortcomings of some processes which we have experienced in the context of the REACH authorizations. And we have to make sure that we boost innovation, production and use of safer and more sustainable chemicals, and we want, of course, this innovation to happen in Europe. And bringing all these objectives together is not an easy matter. And I think you are very well aware in the European Parliament about the discussions we are having now on the generic approach to risk management, on the reform, on the authorization and restrictions, and of course also on the implementation of the essential use concept under REACH. And I think we have really enormous opportunities here at hand to make REACH more efficient and effective. But we also have to make sure that we don't end up with any unintended negative consequences. And let's not forget, REACH is the most sophisticated piece of chemical legislation in the world. And we have to make sure that when we come forward with this proposal that we get it right. So I would not just like to repeat, but I think this is really this double measure against which we will be measured, is that increase of protection of health and safety in the environment and reduction of administrative burdens. And I'm particularly thinking here of SMEs, because they have to make sure that they can actually absorb the plans to restrict and substitute more substances. And we want to make sure that we help European companies, in particular SMEs, to actually gain ground on these very important innovations for sustainable production and use of safer chemicals. And we also want to avoid that manufacturing is simply driven out of the EU and then we end up importing the same products which we used to produce. So let me just flag that, and I already referred to it, that we need predictability on the future rules. And predictability is in particularly key for companies to plan their investment in sustainable chemistry. And this means that we should give a clear indication on how we intend to introduce future restrictions based on the generic risk management approach. And that's why we will certainly come up with a work plan which will set the priorities for the generic risk management approach, and uses where human exposure and emissions to the environments are expected to be highest would obviously be priority. And another key element, and Aurel already hinted at it, is the improvement of enforcing the compliance with REACH rules. Because we have major issues here, especially for imported products. We have to tackle the increasing issue of online sales. And I think this is very, very important. We have a common interest here, because if the REACH provisions are not enforced, this damages not only our health and the environment, but also undermines the level playing field between companies. So all this to say that we are working really with high speed. You know that we submitted our impact assessment to the Regulatory Scrutiny Board in November. We are now progressing with addressing the issues which were identified there. We are advancing with looking at the legal drafting. And so we are working as fast as we can, but I can only repeat what my colleague said, that we will stick to what we have put in the work program of the European Commission, but of course working as fast as possible, and that is the last quarter of 2023. And if we are ready earlier, we will submit a proposal earlier. And as a final word, I would just like to say, while all the colleagues here work full speed on the REACH revision, let's not forget that we have the current legislation, and we have an important work which is also happening at the moment under the current legislation, which I think the Parliament has also been following and being involved with a lot of interest, like microplastics, etc. So it's not like that nothing happens on chemicals at the moment. I think we are working full speed in all aspects. Thank you very much.
I'll try to refrain from immediately commenting. I'll just give the floor to my colleagues. And first we do a round of coordinators, 2 minutes each, please. And for EPP, Maria Spiraki.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to kindly ask you to say a few words in Greek, if it's possible.
In my country, today we're living a tragedy. The number of dead from the collision of the trains is not clear just now. How many are dead? Our thoughts go to the people who have died, to the families, and to those who are trying to recover from this tragic event. The responsibilities should be distributed at all levels, and justice should decide who is responsible for this.
In English, well, it is well known that the regulation on registration, evaluation, authorization and restriction of chemicals, together with the regulation on classification, labeling and packaging of chemicals, are the key union legislation for the assessment and management of chemicals. And our goal, and I would like to repeat it because it is important, is to become the continent of sustainable chemicals by design. And in order to address this goal, we have to revise these two complementary pillars in order to significantly increase the level of protection of our citizens, providing at the same time stability and predictability to the internal market. And as CLP is already in the pipeline of the legislative procedure, as the Commission has already mentioned, and I have the heavy duty and the honor and the responsibility to become the rapporteur of this House, REACH has a significant delay. And the main reason is the pandemic and the consequences to the production of chemicals, additionally with the soaring energy cost we faced during the period of 2022. As mentioned in the last evaluation of REACH in 2018, REACH is effective, but there are opportunities for further improvement, simplification and burden reduction. And I would like to stick on these two issues, on these three issues, following some kind of proposals. First, the revision of the registration requirements for manufacturers and importers has to include increased information on hazards of concern, documentation of safe use and information on the environmental footprint. Second, the simplification of communication in the supply chains, where it could be considered the inclusion of harmonized electronic formats. Third, the revision of the provisions for dossier and substance evaluation to ensure the registration dossier are in compliance and that sufficient information for concluding on concern is available. Fourth, the reforming of the authorization process. And fifth, the reforming of the restriction process, and in this regard it could be considered the extension of the generic RICS approach to more restriction, not only for the endocrine disruptor, but also for other substances that are affecting human beings, particularly respiratory sensitizers or else. So, in this extent, it is important to take into account that particularly SMEs in the industry will take the cost. And we should make sure that we will make our best so these increased costs to be affordable and accepted by the ecosystem and ensure that all operators will benefit of simplified, transparent and predictable provisions. In this regard, the simplification of REACH in combination with reduction of administrative burdens, particularly for SMEs, should be taken seriously. We should extend the changes to REACH further to incentivize innovation and give an essential boost to the European industry in the framework of greening the industrial plan. And also, furthermore, it is the implementation. Imposing the same requirements for imported products as for domestic products will ensure the level playing field, thus alleviating the current disadvantage of the EU industry. It is not only the empowerment of the presence of Olaf, it is also the increase the capacity and the resources of the levels of ECHA, because it is the #1 issue. We have to make a scientific-based approach. Allow me to conclude with this. There is a strong level of agreement between the industry, scientific base and civil society representatives on the need for regulatory certainty or rules related to chemical safety to guide the sector's green transition and investment. And it is time to act now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I now tune to S&D, Maria Arena.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Alors, la stratégie chimie.
The chemical strategy as a whole and the REACH revision is, above all, as you said, a matter of public health. Reducing exposure to chemical substances is a contribution to fighting cancer, that plan, and also contributing to zero pollution and the Green Deal in general. That's precisely what broadly justifies the urgent need to overhaul this legislation to make it more effective. That's what you said earlier, Commission representative. So I've got a few questions. Firstly, on timing, you said as soon as possible. I think it would be worthwhile being more specific. What is the state of progress of the Commission's work in the impact assessment of the REACH reform? By the end of June, is it envisageable? And what remains open to discussion for the time being? On the phasing out of the most dangerous substances, that might take several decades, and the evaluation approach has only been used twice in 16 years under REACH. What is the Commission planning to do to govern the exposure of citizens to the most dangerous substances, such as carcinogenic substances or endocrine disruptors? And what about the restriction roadmap? Is the Commission planning to use that to work out binding action for the future? And what about the extension of the general risk evaluation approach? Can you confirm that the most dangerous substances will be forbidden on the basis of their danger, and what substances will be prioritised? Persistent substances, for example, should be included. On implementation of the principle of no data, no market, you reminded us that this is a founding principle of the current REACH, but this is a failure at the moment, and many substances which remain in the market, there are 100,000 substances in the European market, and the European Environment Agency tells us only 500 of them are fully known. So urgently we need to ensure that the files provided by industry are comprehensive, and we need to look at the REACH annexes to ensure that these substances can no longer be on the market. You said that could be done by delegated act and comitology. So there you could go faster. Do you have an agenda to change those annexes? Lastly, the PFAS pollutant scandal uncovered last week shows us once again that the REACH restrictions are too slow and not complete enough, and they don't allow for health or environmental protection. What is the Commission planning to do to restrict authorisation here, especially speeding up regulatory measures to facilitate restriction of substance groups? And what's happening in terms of the essential use concept? How will that be factored into the restriction and authorisation procedures? Thank you.
Now turn to Renew, Martin Heusig.
Thank you very much, and thank you, dear Commission, for dear Aurel and Christine, for accepting our invitation. I have to say that I'm a bit sad that we're not having enough dialogue with the Commission. We've seen, I mean, of course, I know about lots of consultation that the Commission is doing with the Member States on the expert level, and it's good. It's really good that the Commission is discussing with the Member States on how to build the REACH and make it really work. But I would like to ask for an equal approach as we are a co-legislator with the Parliament. And listening to the interventions at the very beginning, I have to sadly say I haven't learned much new, that it's already in the CSS written. And that's where I know that in the committee format it's kind of going into it as it's hard, but I would like to really plead and encourage the Commission for the sake of having really quality legislation and the REACH that assures equally competitiveness and a high level of protection of health and environment, to engage with this House much more on a more detailed level. Because honestly, hearing we will consider polymers, it's not telling me anything, as much as I would like to know more. And hence one of the first questions is, so where do you see the main obstacles? Where do you see the opportunities? And how do you think this can be addressed? Because this is the crunch of the thing. Equally, I have to say that the essential use concept is something really, really relevant. And I would like to understand more from the Commission and have a fruitful exchange, hopefully, on how we can advance the essential use concept on the level that, on one hand, it's delivering the fact that we should not have substances of very high concern in consumer products, full stop. And on the second time, well, there is an essential case, not the color of lipstick or color of a car, but really something that is essential for the society. We still can find a way how to use them because we need to have it delivered. And the devil is in the detail, not in the general statements, and I think this is the level of the detail that we need. And hence, another question is, can we seek a commitment that there will be a more draft text that will be shared with this House by June, unless by June there is already a proposal on the table, which would be actually ideal scenario, that we can more discuss in depth, because I think this is really, really important. Another point is the timeline when I'm speaking about the June. The original commitment was 22. We have 23, and the work plan is talking about end of Q4. I think we really have an urgent need to advance it. And it's not only the case for the health and environment. We have a situation where I keep on hearing from the chemical industry, from the giants of the chemical industry, that they urgently need REACH. We have entire panic in this town and in the European Union about IRA. And the chemical industry is telling me, well, we cannot make investment decisions in Europe because we don't have a legislative certainty. We don't have the REACH proposal on the table, which would tell us which direction the Union is going and how can we adapt it. So, big plea for the sake of the industry, for the sake of the competitiveness in Europe, for the sake of the SMEs in Europe, please come up with the proposals as soon as possible. Make them out, publish them in second quarter. I would be happy with June, and bring us on board on the technical level, because then also I believe the amendments will be more productive and the whole process will be smoother for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the Greens, Jutta Paulus.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commission, for being with us and for making this exchange of view possible. And thanks for confirming that the Commission sticks to the chemical strategy for sustainability and acknowledges that we need to revise REACH for the safe and sustainable by design. And I'm also glad that you see the opportunities in closing loopholes, remedy shortcomings, and so forth. On enforcement, fraud, and so forth, you have made important points which I can fully support. The zero pollution ambition is a key pillar of the European Green Deal. And therefore, we were a bit worried that we are not seeing even a glimpse on the horizon of the REACH revision yet. And instead, we hear ever further dates being pushed behind. And sorry, you should commit here and now that the Commission will adopt the proposal for the revision by June 2023 at the latest, because the last trimester 23 is not acceptable. You very well know that we can hardly even start working before the election in this Parliament. And that would mean that a new Commission might have totally different interests, taking back the REACH revision proposal, and then we'll lose another 5 years. We have seen, as my colleagues have already mentioned, an unprecedented pollution with PFAS, and this pollution has happened with the current REACH in force for more than 15 years. So this shows why we cannot carry on as we have done in the past. Also, we've been talking a lot about industry, and of course industry is important, SMEs are important, and I fully support what Martin just said on legislative clarity, because no one will make investment decisions as long as they don't know in which concepts, in which products they should invest. But we should also think of our consumers. We have the commitment in the CSS of toxic-free consumer products, and it's even said, we will take swift action. Where is this action? I cannot see it. We don't even have a target date. And therefore, I really urge you to come forward with the concept of essential uses and also with a plan how to protect consumers from harmful chemicals, be they cancerogenic, be they hazardous for human health as a whole, or even for the unborn life. And another key commitment was revision of data requirements, because we need to identify the chemicals with critical hazard properties. And therefore, I would also like to know, do you stand by your commitments given in the CSS with regard of this revision? And let me just reassure you, I don't see any voice in this Parliament asking for exempting imports. Imports are already in REACH now, and no one intends to take them out, so we will keep the level playing field for our industry so that no one can take advantage of moving production elsewhere. This is just a false flag maneuver which was set up in your statement right now, because it hasn't happened, and the problem of imports with hazardous substances and control is a totally different one. But you won't gain anything from moving production. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We turn to ID. Aurélie Beigneux.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Just allow me to remind you that the EU has stopped testing on animals for cosmetics for several years now. But we're learning that today the European Chemicals Agency is calling for new tests on animals for products that have been known for a long time. So this is only in the interests of lobbies who are interested in profits and not animal welfare. What will we need to do to ensure that European legislation will ban this animal testing? We urgently need a plan to put an end to animal experimentation, and we need specific concrete progress on this. But the Commission needs to close its door to the lobbying community. We need to focus on in vitro tests which can replace animal tests. And we also need to speed up our digital research. Many experiments are done in silico, which involves modeling testing on computers instead of on animals. The European Union gets on its high horse with regard to moral issues to the whole world, but it is lagging behind in regards to animal testing. And we must never treat animals in this way. We need to trust science and not not industry, which is often unscrupulous in its approach. Thank you.
We do not have a speaker for ECR, so I immediately turn to the left. Anja Haaskamp.
Ja, dank u wel, voorzitter. Ja, het is...
Thank you, Chair. It's absolutely essential that REACH be reviewed to ensure the health of nature, people and animals. How can you explain the delays that we've been faced with? Does the Commission recognized that this legislation has become the victim of the industry lobby? And it talks a lot about level playing field and the consequences on industry, so I'm sure that's the case. One of the cornerstones of the Green Deal is the chemical strategy for sustainability, and that's unacceptable. One substance, one assessment. That was one of the most important aspects of the revision of REACH, not only to increase the speed of everything and and security, but also to reduce animal testing. This process is now faced with years of delays, and I'd like to know how many unnecessary animal experiments will result. How many innocent animals will suffer as a result of this? It's not only about animals, it's also about human health. The postponement for food contact materials is completely unacceptable as well. Then there's titanium dioxide. Science is clear on titanium dioxide. It is carcinogenic. What will the Commission do concerning the ECJ's decision concerning this aspect of titanium dioxide? Even if science wasn't as clear on this issue as it is, the precautionary principle should mean that we shouldn't use this. What will the Commission do about this? In closing, PFAS. Our rivers and our environment is heavily polluted with PFAS, and it's essential that we finally get moving on this. But the exceptions in the legislation are far too numerous. They go too far. What will the Commission do to ensure that we put a stop to pollution with PFAS? What timeline are we looking at? Because we really don't have a minute to lose on this. Thank you.
That concludes the round of coordinators. So we now move on to Catch the Eye, and we have 4 speakers, and so we can all take them. We have 5 speakers, but we still all can take them. And we start with Mr. Kanyev from EPP.
Thank you, Chair. Please allow me to go on in Bulgarian on this occasion.
Members of the Commission, when it comes to my conversation with the Environment Commissioner, Mr. Sienkiewicz, I would like to ask a question to you and to make a call. There is discussion of the classification and labeling of essentials, rose oil, lavender, thyme, etc. My question is, what are the specific plans of the Commission here? Because given the unwanted delay of the legislation, there is too much time for rumors and speculation. And when we talk, and now my call, I would like to make a call for maximum transparency and communication. The production of essential oils is an important sector in many relatively poor regions in the EU, including Bulgaria, Greece, Italy, Spain, France, but it is part of long national and regional traditions. This is true of Bulgaria, which has a long track record of raw soil production. The lack of clear communication and delay in the legislative proposal is fertile ground for rumors and anti-European talk. I would like to solve this issue through active communication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We also have Helen Fritzon.
Oh, thank you so much, Chair. Yes, since the last REACH revision, more and more studies point to how endocrine disruptors contribute to infertility, cancer, and obesity. So the revised REACH must take this into account and be based on the one substance, one assessment approach. And we also need to tackle the so-called cocktail effects from interacting chemicals. We are not walking in the air, we are swimming in chemicals without any idea on how they affect us. So lastly, I also want to express my support to immediately ban on non-essential PFAS. Recently, the European Chemical Agency published a proposal to ban around 10,000 of these forever chemicals, and many national chemical agencies are supporting this ban. So I will therefore like to ask the Commission, what about the Commission position on this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Véronique Trillet-Lenoir.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. As a rapporteur for the European plan to fight against cancer, I'd like to reiterate and echo what my colleagues have said. We need to revise REACH as immediately. We need to prohibited polymers and nanomaterials and get clear information on their toxicity and on their nature. We need to evaluate as effectively as possible the cocktail effects. We need to regroup the assessments by families of substance or substance categories and not by individual substance, and we are against this practice, which was raised in the course of the objections that were raised in this committee. We need to follow the rule of no data, no market. We need to increase financial and human resources of the European Chemicals Agency. And, as has been said, we need to follow up on the implementation of REACH in order to contribute to the health of Europeans in a concrete way, because this is about preventing non-transmissible illnesses, contagious illnesses, such as cancers. The European Union needs to show itself up to the task and not give in to lobbies and interest groups. Thank you.
And for Les Verts, Michel Rivasi.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask a question of the Commission. You are not respecting your commitments. There's been the strategy on the durability and sustainability of chemicals, and you promised legislation proposal by the end of 2022, and you're now saying it will be the end of 2023. That's too late, too late. You are not being honest with all European consumers. And if it's end of 2023, we'll be faced with the elections of 2022. So this is not acceptable. And you're not only cheating us, the MEPs, but you are cheating the European citizens as well. Second thing, in the revision, in the REACH regulation, there were 3 pillars improving procedures and to others. And when I hear DG Grow, making DG Grow more efficient, improving procedures, who's talking about health in any of this? Who is responsible for health? You're talking about small and medium businesses. You're talking about the industrial sector and a range of other things, but nothing about health. But look at the figures, whether it be cancers or a range of other illnesses. We know it's the chemical substances that cause these illnesses, and you are revising this document and delaying and taking time, and you're just leading to more and more deaths. And this is serious. This is serious. And we, the ecologists, have always stood up for getting the best regulation. And you are pushing back the time when this can be implemented, this legislation can be passed. And you're doing that because you're giving in to the lobbies. And we're here to protect the health of consumers. Give us proof that you are able to get a regulation now. June at the latest, so it can be operational.
I have also Peter Liese.
Yeah, I will speak in German. Also ich möchte jetzt hier wirklich ein
I'd like to make the point here. I'd like to thank the Commission for not having proposed put the text forward yet, because it doesn't need to be done quickly. It needs to be done well. And I have the feeling that the Commission does too little, and that the quality of the proposals suffers as a result. And I think what we need is good legislation and not focus too much on speed. There is REACH already, and there's a lot of regulation with regard to many chemicals, and sometimes it's too strict in some areas, such as with chromium. Jutta Paulus, how is it that we support the producers in third countries, because all we're doing is getting it to be produced elsewhere because of our rules, and we have problems with the products, the chrome products, the finished products that are brought in. And if the Commission could focus on this problem to find a better solution so that we can include third countries in this, if possible. PFAS is a big issue, Mrs. Paulus, and other initiatives of the Green Environment Ministry in Germany is sort of leading the way. But it's not about getting a new REACH proposal on the table next week. I've understood that the member states are prepared to work on the basis of the current regulation, and there is support for the compromises on the F cars, because there we have alternatives, and we need to profit from those alternatives. But there where there are no alternatives, where the products need to be kept, though, we need to allow these chemicals, such as with fire protection materials. Thank you.
I'd like to take the privilege as a chair to do the final slot on Catch the Eye. I will be very short and focus on one simple question, and that's the timing of the proposal. And this is really, I want to focus on the clarity that we are giving to the market and to the industrial players. If the REACH proposal comes in December, it will not be dealt with anymore by this Parliament. It will stay on the table. It will create unclarity what will happen to it. It will only be picked up later in a new Parliament with a new Commission. We do not know for sure what they will do with it. In other words, by putting it on the agenda for December, you are creating unclarity to the market for at least another 2 years. That's what you're doing. And we all know, and that's the elephant in the room, we all know it was a political compromise to do that. Because there were people that didn't want to have the REACH review and others wanted it, and the compromise, let's put it, late in 2023. But sometimes the compromise is worse than any of the two initial proposals. Because now it is still on the agenda, but with a lot of unclarity. And this is also exactly why indeed chemical players come to us and say, We prefer to have it, if it's coming, then make sure this parliament can deal with it. And that's the question. We're not talking about days, we're not talking about weeks, but enable this parliament to deal with it in order to create clarity for the market. That's one of the key reasons why we're having this debate, and a bit more clarity from the Commission in its answers would be very much appreciated. And that concludes the catch the eye, also from my side. So now the Commission can give the answers. We have 10 minutes left, so I propose we take 5 minutes each. And first I'll give the floor, as we did also at the initial start, to Aurel Ciobanu-Dordea from DG ENV.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I would like to thank also the members of this committee who have intervened, and I take it that there was unanimous support for the Commission to come as soon as possible with a legislative proposal amending REACH, and we are hearing your different arguments, and we will, of course, report them back. If I were to systematize the extraordinarily diverse remarks which have been made from the floor, I would say that maybe in relation to REACH revision, there have been 3 points made, essentially about the timing of the proposal, about elements of content, and I think also about what the level of engagement in detail with the members of this committee and members of this House in general. And I would like to address these 3 issues, plus 2 additional issues which have been raised here, PFAS and titanium dioxide. And I would like to say the following. We are doing our best right now in order to make this legislative proposal available and decided by the College as soon as possible. However, this, and you know it very well, it's also a political decision in itself, and it is when the Commission will be politically ready to do this, it will do it. And we are making our best efforts in order to provide content in a rational way and in a practical way, and in a way which is also compatible with the needs, which is careful about the administrative burden, which pays attention to the correlation between the REACH revision and the CLP revision that we have just proposed last year. So what do I mean to say with this? Speed must not come at the expense of the quality of this. So we need to strike, and we are doing our best efforts in order to strike the right balance between speed and quality. And we bear in mind, indeed, as MEP Rivasi, for instance, and other interveners have pointed out, at the core, we are bearing in mind the impact for consumers, also the impact for the industry, the impact on the procedures to make them more feasible and swifter than to really bring improvements that would benefit both consumers and the industry, and I would modestly say also the institutions, the authorities which are involved, national authorities, European Commission, the agency. Now, the second block of issues which have been raised here are about elements of content, and I have tried in my intervention to already provide some preemptive reassurance that issues which you have mentioned, and also my colleague did the same thing, that you have mentioned as very important: the reform of restrictions, the simplification of authorizations, the issue of essential uses, the generic approach to risks, the inclusion of polymers, the inclusion of endocrine disruptors or effects caused by endocrine disruptors are taken into account, will figure in the body of the legislative proposal amending REACH. And I would like to reassure that I think absolutely all the issues that you have raised will be addressed in the legislative proposal addressing REACH. This also gives a measure of the complexity of this legislative proposal. And the third, I think, block of issues that you have raised here is the early engagement, and MEP Hoysik, who is a connoisseur of the chemical legislation, and also of the Aarhus regulation, by the way, has raised the problem of the early and deep engagement between the Commission services, even en amont, even before the legislative proposal is made. And MEP Hoysik is also a fin connoisseur of the rules of the game and of the European procedures, and knows that, and honorable all members of this House otherwise knows that, in particular in this file, but also on other legislative proposals, we don't engage in detail on things which are subject to political decision. And until the College of the Commission will decide on all these elements, we cannot under-promise you or, engage in detail, under-promising or over-promising to you. But I can say the following. Given the complexity of these issues, we will engage with you once the proposal is stable. And we will engage with you collectively or individually, depending on the interests that you will express, ready to explain why we are proposing certain solutions and not others, the feasibility, the implications, the impact, the assessment of the impacts, and so on. But I would like to, respectfully submit that we cannot engage in depth, as you suggest, before a political decision is made by the College. On the titanium dioxide, I would like to briefly reassure MEP, I think, Arena, who has raised this issue. Yes, I will conclude, Mr. Chair, that the Commission has appealed the judgment. And on the issue of PFAS, I could speak for a few more minutes, of course, but I would like then briefly to reassure the members who have expressed their concern about PFAS that 3 procedures are ongoing in order to address PFAS in different forms or in different uses. And the Commission stands fully behind these procedures. Some of them have been initiated by Member States, and we will watch that we bring them at the end so that they are effective. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now we turn to Christine Schreiber from DG GROW for the final words.
Yes, I will try to be shorter to make up for some time. First also from my side, thanks for all the different interventions, I think, which help us a lot in our process. And already you explained, of course, the formal aspect of the engagement with Parliament. But I think it's also fair to say we stand ready to engage when there's a seminar or some discussion. I think we're very happy then to exchange and explain issues. And I think we have actually been pursuing this already quite extensively. I would also, you flagged all the different points which we had put in our ongoing intervention. I think what is really important that we will have a roadmap, and also to reassure that on the timeline on how the substances are tackled, that we really, I think we can reassure you on all these fronts that the most harmful substances will be phased out in consumer uses. I would like to pick up, one point on the animal tests, because it was mentioned twice. We have a very, very strong commitment to, wherever possible, of course, phase out animal testing, and especially maximize the use of the new approach methodologies, the alternative testing methodologies. And I think here again, it's as always, it's a complicated trade-off. I mean, we need more information on certain substances. For that, you may need more animal tests. And it's a delicate trade-off because it involves costs, but it also costs in terms of use of animals. I think we have to be extremely careful when we actually go for more information requirements if this requires more animal testing. So it's a delicate trade-off. We, have a commitment to use these new approach methods. You know that there is also the European Partnership for the Alternatives to Animal Testings, which is very active. And so I can really reassure you that whatever is in our possibilities to make sure that we will use as few animals as possible in the process. And finally, you referred to PFAS already, but I think it's really important that we are tackling this under, we can tackle this under the existing REACH regulation. There is a major restriction proposal coming up which has been submitted to ECHA. And we have already, maybe it's important to point out that we have already restricted some PFAS substances like the PFOS and PFOA. So I think this is something which we are looking at very closely, and we will, once we have the feedback from ECHA, of course, come up with a proposal. So, in short, just, I would say from our perspective, thank you very much for also the sense of urgency you have put to us, but I think it was also clear, and I think that came up from Owen, it's not, we just don't want any REACH revision, we want a good REACH revision, which works, which achieves its ambitious health and safety objectives, without sort of unnecessarily increasing admin burden. And as this is, please trust also that it's not an easy objective, but we're working, as I said, very, very hard and in a joined up way to deliver this as fast as possible and definitely within the time frame which was set, which is Q4. Q4 doesn't have to be December. I think Q4 starts in October in any case. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Just stressing that October or December doesn't matter if you look from a legislative proposal. So in that sense, still making that point still also for the clarity for all the players in the market. That concludes this exchange of view. Thank you very much. I also thank the Commission very much, and we are eagerly waiting the proposal. That I think became clear from this exchange of view. And I want to thank my colleagues very much. And I just want to say that we now have a break, but we reconvene the ENV committee meeting with votes at 2:30. See you then.